when you press the trigger for the first time, you can become like a dog on a bloodlust. Frustration creates anger. Anger creates violence. Extreme, undisciplined violence. You're in that code red aggression. Body parts everywhere. This is probably the first time that I've spoken about this. I've been to combat and heavy combat. I would never insult a World War I and World War II veteran by saying that I've been to war. Those poor fuckers went to war. Within a few months of leaving the military, I got into an altercation with a policeman. My actions warranted me going to prison, absolutely. Accountability. I haven't got PTSD and I'm not going to say that I've got PTSD. Then expect a prison sentence. I said, fine. If we are of all cultures, that means we are cultureless. If you're hostile against our British culture, you do not belong here. It's death by 1,000 cuts. And this is where I come in, mate. No more. Predominantly people that don't belong here, that don't deserve to be here, that don't fit in, that don't integrate. What the fuck is going on?
I'm telling you, you have got an army behind you.
I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors, Gold Seal. I use their products every single day, and now I finally get to work with them. I use their products for anti-inflammatory, reduced anxiety, better sleep, and mental clarity. I'm going to put a link to their website in the description, along with a 10% discount code for you to take advantage of. Go and have a look at their website, see if there's anything in there for you. I hope you enjoy this week's episode, and good health.
And
Liam, how are you, sir?
all the better for seeing you. And finally, we have a man to get behind. We've been lost for a long, long time. We've had no one really to get behind, particularly in the capital of our country, London. We've had to sit there and watch Sadiq Khan destroy the country. And now you're in the running. I'm very, very excited for today. But before we get to the minutiae of Mayor of London, let's do the journey. Let's give the audience the whole of Ant Middleton, where it all started. I mean, what drives a 16-year-old young man to join the military? So run me up to the point you decided I'm going to sign up. Any complications, any obstacles you had to overcome? I know you lost your dad when you was very young, 5, but in your own words, that journey from 0 to 16.
Mate, it was one that's a blur, to be fair, but a very prominent one that's made me the man I am today. 100% from my father passing away. When people say to me, "Oh, it must have been such a traumatic experience." 5 years old, you don't know what trauma is. You know, you're very moldable, you're very adaptable. You just go with the flow. You know, you want to please. And I suppose what worked in my favour, even though when you look at the situation, it's probably a super negative situation. What worked in my favour is when my father passed away, my mother remarried more or less straight away. So, you know, it doesn't take the brains of an archbishop to realise what was going on behind the scenes, right? So one father was just replaced with another father. You know, all the pictures of my dad were taken down from the wall. I wasn't allowed to speak about him, you know. So the mourning process wasn't there. It didn't exist. This new man stepped into our lives. He was Dad. We changed our surname straight away. You know, it was a whole process that was sort of managed for us. And as kids, you just go along with it, don't you? It's not until later on you start to ask the questions that you start to, you know, really dig, and you want to find out who your father is and, you know, where you get certain traits from, where your DNA's from, you know, why am I like this? Why am I nothing like my stepdad? Why am I, you know, where do I get this from? So that journey was sort of self-discovery was always going on. But when I look back at the situation at 5 years old, which really helped me have the mindset that I have today, I started self-reflecting as soon as my father died, because I wasn't allowed to speak about him. I wasn't allowed to cry about him. You know, I wasn't allowed to show any emotions towards my real dad, because guess what? I had a new dad, you know, put up and shut up. This is your new dad. You'll call him dad. Don't talk about, you know, about your old dad because he doesn't exist anymore. He's not here. So what that made me do, it made me self-reflect from such a young age, because when my father died and I would go into my room and burst out crying, I couldn't say to my mum, or couldn't say to anyone, why am I feeling like this? You know, I had to figure it out myself. So when I was crying in my room, and, you know, I'd say to myself, what's going on? Why are you in tears? And broke it down myself. Because I miss my dad. Because, my dad's no longer here. I don't know what's going on. So I would answer my own emotional responses with what I knew best from a 5-year-old. So it helped me self-reflect from such a young age, that I dealt with my emotions from such a young age by myself, that my emotional intelligence is off the scale. This is why I'm so good, or I like to think I'm so good with people, is because I can look at someone and I know if there's something wrong emotionally. I know if there's something going on in your mindset, just by your demeanor, the way that you're acting, the way that you hold yourself, that that you carry yourself. I can tell this from such a young age, that it really helped me move forward. And the mindset as well, my mindset from figuring stuff out from such a young age. Right, this is because of this, and breaking it down very simply. So I'll be crying. I remember crying, going, "Why are you crying?" "Oh, because your dad's dead." Okay, why are you crying now? "Oh, because you miss your dad." "Why are you crying now?" "It's I've got these traits that I'm doing, but I can't talk to anyone. Where am I getting these from?" So I was figuring stuff out along the way subconsciously, and the whole process of my father dying, then 2 years later, us moving to France, this whole thing of us moving to France. So my dad was a Londoner. He was born in North London. My 2 older brothers were born in Enfield. This is where the London connection comes from. Were born in Enfield. My mum was from Portsmouth. So a year after my second brother was born, the whole family moved down to Portsmouth, and that's where a year later I was born in Portsmouth. So I've got a great connection with Portsmouth. I've got a great connection with the military because of Portsmouth, but also I've got a great connection with North London, because every weekend we'd travel up to London, up to Wood Green. I lived in Risley Avenue with my granddad at weekends, just to keep that connection there. But ultimately, after 2 years, everything turned sour with my dad's side and my mum's side with her new husband and my new dad, that to get away from it, we just up and moved to France. So at the age of 8, again, not knowing why, not a clue why we'd all of a sudden up and moved, but obviously there was friction between my mum's side and dad's side, how my mum treated my dad, the passing of my dad. So she almost up and moved us. And, my mum, I love my mum to bits. She's no longer with us. But I look at that situation, my mum was just sheltering us, protecting us. Yes, she's made mistakes, who doesn't? But it was her way of taking us out of the fold and protecting us. So we went to France from the age of 9 till 16, right? In France, we lived in caravans to begin with, until my stepfather renovated an old house. Went to school in France within 6 months, speaking fluent French, first English kids in that village. Embraced by the French culture, loved the French culture, welcomed by the French culture, respected the French culture. So again, the layout of the land as a kid, I was just like, do you know what? I'm playing in the fields, I'm playing football, I'm running around, I've got loads of space. Yeah, you don't know what money's all about there. I'm being fed. But at the same time, because I was so self-sufficient from the age of 5, the moment I could flee the nest, I wanted to do so. I've always wanted, from the moment I can remember, to be self-sufficient, to lead my own life. And this is where we go back to leadership, and I go back to saying everything starts with you. If you can lead yourself, then that's the start of your leadership journey. And I suppose looking back on it, from the age of 5 to 16, I was leading my own life, answering my own questions, dealing with my own emotions, developing my own mindset, to the point where I'd finished school. Well, I didn't finish school. I didn't do the last sort of year of school, because I was just interested in getting back to the UK, getting back to my roots. And what was the easiest way to do that was to join the military. Because if I joined the military as soon as I could at the age of 16, they were putting a roof over my head. They were giving me a small paycheck. I would be part of something. I'd be part of a belonging. I'd have almost this new family. So me joining the military, everyone says to me, "Ant, did you want to join the military because, you were obsessed by it?" I was like, no, I had the old SAS survival book. Liam, who didn't have that book, where you'd read it, and I was in the fields, bow and arrows, making dens. But ultimately, when I had the opportunity, I jumped at it. And my biggest out, or my biggest idea of being self-sufficient, of leading my own life, was at 16 and 10 months, the earliest opportunity that you can join the military. Also, jumping from France back to, which has always pulled me back to my homeland of Great Britain.
Yes, incredible what tragic events can lead to, the outcome. Becoming a man very young. I can totally relate to that, but we won't go down that route. But I totally and utterly get that. It makes my mum sad that I grew up so fast and had to become a man so young. She feels like I missed out on a lot of my childhood. But like you, I dare say no regrets, because I'd sooner be a leader and protect other people than take my time growing up and getting lost along the way and needing somebody to lead me.
But like you said there, no regrets, Liam. And I love what you just said. I live my life by that. No regrets, because, you know, I look back on the situation, and when I look back on it, if you look back on my situation with a negative mindset, you're going to see all the negatives. You're going to see the trauma. You're going to see the tragic situations that happen. You're going to see all the negative situations that happen. However, if you look back on your past through a positive lens, you know, I've got a super positive mindset now. Never used to have. I've worked to get it. But when you look back on your life through a positive lens with a positive mindset, guess what you see? You start to see all the positive things. So when I look back on my father's passing, I go, what are the positives from someone passing away? Well, actually, that man helped me. He's given me the mindset that I have today. He's given me the emotional intelligence that I use, you know, in everyday life today. He's given me the skills to be able to socialize and not overthink, overanalyze, and beat myself up. I'm quite simple. I go, right, where's the problem? It's here. Right, you got a Y junction. It's either yes, no, good, bad, right, wrong. You know, I'm very good at breaking things down, making a decision, whether it's right or wrong, and going with that decision. If I get it right, great. If I get it wrong, well, guess what? That's not the way to do it, and I'll find a solution thereafter. So, and again, there's no regrets with that, because now I look at life and I go, do you know what? I don't look at it as trauma. I don't look at it as I haven't dragged that trauma into my life now. I look at it as life experience. This is what I learned from this experience in a positive way, and this is how I move forward with it, not only for myself, but in honor of my father.
I respect that massively, and amen to that. That's beautiful. So at the age of 16 years, 10 months, at that moment in time, did you feel like you was a natural leader? Was there something in you that made you think, I'm born to lead?
Do you know what? I'd always annoy people because I would do things my own way. You know, I would listen, don't get me wrong. I was very polite, very disciplined. You know, I played a lot of sport. I was always polite. I always say manners will get you somewhere rather than nowhere, so use them. So it was just a decision that I made, that I thought to myself, do you know what? It's time to take that leap of faith. It's time to, and I get excited when I put myself in these singular leadership positions where I have to figure it out. I have to lead my own life. I have to lead myself in order to get to where I need to be.
You're happy with the buck stopping with you?
Yeah, 100%.
And not many people are.
Do you know why I'm happy with that? Because I can deal with it there and then. The buck stops with me. Guess what? I've got no excuses. I've got no one else to blame. And I love the challenge of it. My life is one big challenge. It's full of multiple little challenges to the bigger challenge. And I just love that from such a young age. So my decision actually to join the military was one where I looked at the options of like, well, I've got no qualifications. You know, I can't sit still in class. I'm super polite, so I've got these people skills that I've got. You know, I know how to work a room. I know how to look people in the eye. I know how to have a conversation. And again, with criticism and with anything thrown my way, I actually like that, because I can just take hold of it and roll with it. But it was just the excitement of the journey.
Let me find out about the journey from Paras to Special Forces.
Go on then.
That's the journey I'm really interested in, because it was a journey, weren't it?
Yeah, it was. When I joined the army, I was in 9 Parachute Squadron Royal Engineers. So I was a para engineer. I went through training at the age of, I signed the dotted line at 16 and 11 months, and then started training a couple of months later. I just turned 17 when I started training. Went through training. Smash training. I've got best recruit, best PT. You You know, normally you get one or the other. I managed to get both of those awards, which sent me, obviously, when I went into phase 2, it set me in good regards. And I found from such a young age, you know, going in with those awards actually into my unit, into 9 parishes, done me no favours. Because they were like, yeah, you might have got best recruit, best PT, but it's almost like that whole who the fuck do you think you are? You know, especially when you're a young spunker, right? You're a young spunker, you're going in, you got your parachute wings, I've got my maroon beret, best recruit, best PT. You know, back then I was a good looking lad, you know.
You still are.
Cheers, mate, cheers. But, you know, when just by your presence, you can rub people up the wrong way.
Is that jealousy?
Yeah, but also it's a lack of maturity from my end as well on, you know, just knowing how to sort of maneuver in certain situations. But I was just like, right, if I want to do something, I'm doing it. You know, fit. I would turn up physically fit, one of the fittest people there. You know, I know my stuff. But then all of a sudden you become a threat. Am I going to get promoted over you? God, this new lad's just come in. Hey, fucking hell, I wanted that course. He's now on that course. So I found that the military, especially 9 Parachute Squadron, which was great for me again. I look back at it and I think, fucking hell, they put me through the mill. You know, they put me through the mill, you know. God, fit old boys, don't get me wrong, you know, machines, you know, did they have, you know, that sort of team ethic? It was more of a hoorah, you know, you got to be one of the lads, you got to go out and fucking, you know, get in scraps, you know, that drinking culture, that fighting culture. And Liam, that just wasn't me. You know, I was this kid that fucking bounced over from the UK, bounced over to France. You know, on weekends I'd be playing bowling, you know, drinking coffee. You know, and I came over to the UK and it's smashing the beers down. It's fucking fight, you know, this whole island mentality. You know, so the culture shock was huge. And I didn't really take to it. You know, I was so, again, this is why I love traveling and I love having these different cultures, because you learn so much from different cultures if you embrace them, if you respect them.
That's the key. And that's one of the things that I picked up when you said about France. You respected their culture. And that's the key to success, period.
100%.
World over. If you're going somewhere, you've got to respect where you're going, what they believe, what they say, what they think, and what they do. It's like, hey, I'm a guest here, no problem at all. If they're the rules, I'm going to play by them.
But there was a turning point where, you know, that culture sort of died out because it's a culture that I took on. But then your real identity comes out. So, you know, going through a couple of years in the army, I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm not really feeling this. I'm going to leave and I'm going to join the Marines. So again, just having that, you know, feeling that I didn't really fit in the army. I thought, do you know what? I'm going to leave, see where it takes me and see where it goes. And not a lot of people know this. But when I left the army, I joined the Metropolitan Police at the age of 22. This is probably the first time that I've spoken about this. I joined the Metropolitan Police at the age of 22 back in 2002. I was at Hendon. I think it was 14-week training process, or I think it was 18 weeks actually. And at sort of the back end of it, you do your TSG training, you know, your shield training, your riot training. So by the last 2 weeks, you'd passed all your exams. You do your TSG training, and then you go off to your borough. I had actually been given my borough, which was Lambeth. But one weekend I went out with my airborne pals, and I got caught drink driving. So I get caught drink driving at the weekend. I go back in to do my TSG training. They obviously pull me in and go, "And we've seen that you've been caught drink driving. You've been given a 6-month ban, whatever it was. You can't continue with the training." So I left the Metropolitan Police due to this drink driving charge.
Did that really make you double down on disliking that kind of culture? The fact that it ruined your chances getting into the Met, the whole drinking, rough and ready, boisterous culture. It's like,
because
shit,
I
it gets
felt
in the
like
way.
I had to do that. But ultimately, you know, it's you know, you're trying to blend in. You're trying to, you know, you're trying to people please still at this point. You know, people pleasing.
Still a very young man.
Baby. You know, joined the military at the age of 17, left at the age of 22. Joined the Met, you know, literally left and joined Whilst I was leaving, I put my application in, done all my tests, etc., etc.
Are you glad that happened now, though, looking back?
I'm glad everything that's happened up to
Part of your
me
tapestry.
sitting in front of you right now, Liam, because the landscape is fascinating. The landscape is challenging. It's positive. I'm loving my life right now. So yeah, again, like you said, and I'm going to take your words, no regrets.
Yeah, and do you know, it's very nice speaking to somebody with that mentality, because I know far too many people that sit there on repeat saying, if I'd have done that, if I'd have done this differently, I wish I could turn back time, I would have done that and I would be here.
Yeah.
And I just think, well, that's a lousy way to live. It's not good for your own state of mind, for starters. It's like, you're here because of the decisions you made. Tomorrow's a new day, make a different decision.
Yeah.
So I've got no regrets either.
100%. And also, if you live with regrets, then, you live with guilt, and you live in a world of I should have, would have, could have, and that world does not exist, mate. It doesn't exist. So you can live in some fairy tale land, you can live in the past, which a lot of people do, but you got to be present right now, and you've got to look slightly, very slightly into the future. And everything happens for a reason. I truly believe that. I'm a strong believer in everything happens for a reason. But also, jumping over to the military, and I suppose that, when I look at my life, when I succeeded in the military, I almost had no one there to be proud of me. It's when I left, when I left the nest, or when I left home at the age of 16, Mum lived in France, stepdad lived in France, I was just bouncing around really. And when you have that element of there's no one there to be proud of you, there's the flip reverse of that. There was no one there to be disappointed in me either. So when I did mess up, when I did fuck up, there's no one to go, Ant, you're better than this. You should know better than this. This is where you've gone wrong. This is what you need to do. But vice versa, when I succeeded, I just brush it off. And I always do that. I've climbed Everest, I've climbed K2. People go, oh, they're such amazing big feats since you've left the military. Oh, you've got multiple number one best-selling books. But it's like on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. I still have that mentality of, there's no one there to be proud of me. There's no one there to be disappointed in me. So where do the levels lie? Where? And that was my whole childhood, my whole later teens going into my early adulthood. So I was trying to figure that out as we went as well. So when I got caught for drink driving, and I left the Metropolitan Police, they're like, right, you can't continue, come back in once your band's done. It was one of those where I was just like, okay, well, what's next? And then I looked back on my military career and I thought, do you know what? I smashed the beginning of my military career. Maybe I was just in the wrong outfit. Maybe instead of joining the army, I should have joined the Marines from the beginning. So I thought, let's go for the Marines. So I went down the careers office, told them my situation. They were like, yeah, listen, we can get you back in the military, no problems whatsoever. But instead of being in the army, you'll come under the Royal Navy with the elite conventional forces of the Royal Marines. So I joined the Marines, and again, I got to a stage where I got to the end of training and I was awarded with the King's Badge. Now, the King's Badge is the overall best recruit on everything. You have to reach so many points. Not every troop that passes out gets the King's Badge. It's a very high honour. You get it when you go to your unit. You get a year's seniority over everyone. So say you would have got to the unit 10 months before me, I would have come in and I would have been senior to you. So again, talk about fucking ruffling feathers, right? But I tip up to my units, I get this King's Badge, and I can remember it being put on my shoulder. It gets put on your left shoulder. And instead of being super proud, I was like, shit, I've been here before. I've got best recruit, best PT in the army. And, it fucking upset a lot of people. And yeah, maybe I didn't go about things the right way, but I wasn't really embraced into the circle. Is the same thing going to happen here? So I remember just thinking to myself, just keep the momentum, man. Because my goal before I joined the Marines was always the Special Forces. I always had that in my head. So I thought, use the Royal Marine training as a benchmark, and then from there onwards, keep the momentum. And I remember passing out, going to my unit, and talk about maturity. The Royal Marines are mature. Yes, you still got your new boy sort of routine, your sprog routine, they call it. But I sort of bypassed that because I already had that in the engineers. So when I went to my unit, you can imagine I've got a King's Badge on my arm. I've got my parachute wings from when I was in the army. and I've got my green beret. So, you know, I tip up and people think I'm either in sniper troop or I'm in recce troop, but, you know, I go to Bravo company in 40 Commando. But there were just a different mentality. You know, it's like, you know, you've earned your green beret, you're now one of us. You know, we push you to be better. What do you want to do? You know, it's the elite conventional forces of the, you know, that and the parachute regiment are the elite conventional forces of the military. And the Royal Marines being the elite conventional forces of the Navy. So they were way more mature. I remember speaking to my officer and he said, Ant, there's going to be a lot on your plate here, a lot of expectations, you know, from the army to now here. You're cutting around with your wings on, which is going to upset a lot of people, which it did. But you now need to, you know, put your money where your mouth is, basically. And that's exactly what I've done, mate. I kept my head down. Went on, done a tour in Sierra Leone on a short-term training team where I was teaching advanced jungle warfare because I'd been to Sierra Leone before. Got back off that and then I deployed to Afghanistan on Op Herrick 7. During my time in Afghanistan, I got field promotion to section commander. So within 2 weeks of being in Afghanistan, something happened to my troop sergeant. My troop commander stepped up to troop sergeant position, and I stepped up as section commander. So I've got 7 men, including myself, 8 men under my belt. So this is literally a year of being a Royal Marine. Now, within that year, I got promoted to Lance Corporal. And then, you know, the second year of being in the Royal Marines, go to Afghanistan, I get full promotion to section commander. Huge steps. You know, I'm taking these gigantic steps and I embrace the situation. I'm in this leadership position straight away. I'm loving it. You know, don't get me wrong. People are going, Ant, you haven't done your junior command course. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Listen, I'm going to talk to the men. You know, I've got the men around. I'm like, listen, I've just been given this position. And when I look around this group and it wasn't being big-headed, I'm the right man for the job. I just need your backing, boys. You know, I'm not going to get everything right. But if I don't, then know that, you know, it's not out of me not trying to do my best, not only for you, but for myself, but for the mission.
And that's a terrifying position for most to be in, but you speak often about harnessing your fear.
Absolutely. And also integrity. You know, a good leader will decision make. They make a decision and they execute it, whether they get it right or wrong. Like I said, if they get it right, good, on to the next mission. If they get it wrong, well, guess what? That's actually a good thing because it's a stepping stone to getting it right. You know, as long as you can, you know, move forward with the courage of your convictions to go, do you know what? Listen, we all make mistakes. My team, are you good to go? And I'll take you through my field promotion that I got. 2 patrols, 2 or 3 days later, you know, I've just got this promotion and I'm leading the men and we're walking through and we're in Sangin, DC. You know, IEDs have just gone off. We've just been used as a QRF to go and collect the remains of a soldier, you know, literally putting him on a stretcher and, you know, body parts all over the place.
What's that like? And because that sounds absolutely harrowing.
Do you know what? You don't know how your emotions are going to take on that situation. And I always say there's three things that control your emotions. There's other people, there's a situation, and there's yourself. Now, with this situation, you know, you don't know how you're going to act emotionally. Psychologically, you can go and block things out. Physically, you can get to A to B and get the casualty out of there. But emotionally, you're at the mercy of the situation, you know, and you've got to rely on your body. Now, this is what's so phenomenal about the human body is it will defend itself at all costs. You know, you do not realize how powerful, how structured, how amazing the human body is. Every single thing on your body serves a purpose, from every hair to every artery to every tendon to every blood vessel. Everything on your body is not there just for the sake of being there. It's there because it's there to protect you, right? And I find that fascinating. I find that there's nothing wasted on my body. You know, it's 100% there for you to use to your advantage. Now, what I found in this situation, that when I was picking up body parts and putting it on a stretcher to get them out of there and clearing rooms to make sure that there was no further IEDs, booby traps, etc., my body subconsciously went into this defensive mode, right? At this stage, I'd never seen a dead body, let alone body parts everywhere. But as I'm clearing these rooms and I'm seeing these body parts, I'm not seeing the body parts. So when I'm picking up body parts, my vision isn't honed in on the details of that body part, right? So I'm picking up a head, for example. I'm not looking at the details. That I know it's a head. I can tell by the shape of it. I can tell by the feel of it. That's going on the stretcher because I know we need to get all the body parts back. My mind isn't taking those photographic memories of something. If I was, on a mission on it, and I'm looking at a laptop, for example, I'm looking at pictures. My mind's storing that. That's intel. Here, my body's protecting itself, where I know that that's a head. I know it's the shape of a head, but I'm not filing in. I'm not saving those images. So it's almost like, yeah, I know that's a head. Bang, it's down. And my body was subconsciously doing that. It's like when I would go into a target and, I would do what I needed to do. There wasn't a personal element to it. There was never a personal attachment to it. And this is where, and I don't speak for people that have PTSD, but I've spoken to a lot of my friends that do. It's the personal element, the personal attachment to it that creates that spiral effect, that negative spiral effect. So, whether it was just because I knew my body so well from such a young age, going back to my father's death, right? It's like this man gave me so much. I can't thank him enough. Almost that situation, people go, oh, if you could have one thing back, would you bring your father back? And I'm like, no, because I am my father. He made me. It's like, no, I wouldn't do that to him and I wouldn't do that to me. So it's really strange because my body was defending itself without even knowing it. And I remember getting back off and an officer came up to me and went, and you were carrying a stretcher as well. How are you feeling? I went, fine. I said, let's get back out on the ground, sir. And he was like, no, we need to talk. I said, well, what do you remember? I said, nothing. I said, I remember going in, doing my job and extracting the casualty. And now it's your job, sir, to repatriate him, get him on a plane home. We've got to carry on the mission. It was like bang, bang. They were such vivid memories in my mind. And I was just doing my job, but my body is phenomenal. My body was protecting me at all costs. My mind was protecting me. My emotions were protecting me. That whole element of the human anatomy and how it syncs together when it needs to protect you. I can't describe it, mate. It is phenomenal.
But you know what? I'm really glad I asked that question. I know it's invasive and some soldiers don't like to talk about that stuff or certainly be asked, but that was a hell of an answer you gave and a hell of a mindset. It's the mindset of a leader that we need. And it all sort of comes back full circle to what people in Britain are looking for. Mm-hmm. So let me take you back to Afghan, because I think you've done 3 tours of Afghan.
Yeah.
I've seen you being interviewed before and people are quite keen to ask you about your body count, how many people you've killed. You can or you can't answer that depending on how you're feeling. But I also want to know how many lives you've saved. I think that's the most important thing out there. I think a better question is, by all means, how many people have you killed? Okay, that's part and parcel of the job. But let's amplify and highlight the amount of lives that you've actually saved. That's the job that's worthy of a medal.
I can't go into my Special Forces days because I'm bound to the Secrecy Act, which, I adhere to, I uphold. I never want to put anyone at risk or national security at risk. But what I can tell you is how I dealt with certain situations, whether in your mind you can say that was in the Special Forces or not, that's completely up to you. I won't tell you that. But I can tell you how I dealt with certain situations. Now, an officer said to me once, I was in a certain role, and this could have been in the Marines or in the Special Forces. He said, what's your job? And I was point man at the time. I was like lead scout, first man through the door. He said, what's your job as lead scout, point man? I said, my job is to look after myself, look after my muckers and to kill the enemy. And he looked at me and he said, you got 2 out of 3. I was like, okay. I said, maybe I'm being a bit selfish saying I need to look after myself. So I was like, to look after my muckers, to kill the enemy, and the mission comes first. He went, and now you've got 1 out of 3. He said, you're right at first. Look after yourself by all means. Make sure that you are there because you are an asset to your team. Protect yourself at all costs because you are needed. Every single man in this team is needed. So, of course, protect yourself. Your muckers, that goes without saying. And he said, 100%. He said, you protect your muckers. He said, that's what they're going to protect you. You're going to protect them. You know, do not let a gap in that phalanx happen. You cover his arcs, they cover your arcs. Great. I thought, well, surely it's not the last one because, you know, I'm there to kill the enemy. He said, you're not there to kill the enemy. He said, you're there to preserve life. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, at this stage, you know, I already, you know, quite combat experience. And I thought to myself, I'm there to preserve life. That doesn't make sense because I'm going into these hot situations and, you know, all they want to do is kill us. Surely that should be my job. Anyway, because I was questioning that motive, it must have lodged in my head. And a situation unfolded where, you know, we're in the heat of a battle and, you know, something happens and all of a sudden I take my finger off the trigger and there's innocent civilians there. And, you know, I go from this, you know, hardened combat, you know, soldier to whoa, this father, which I was at you know, to this, wow, how am I going to preserve life? How am I going to save life? And it was after that mission that I sort of understood, you know, I was in the heat of the battle, heat of the moment. All of a sudden I come across these people, my finger comes off the trigger and my thought process is, how am I going to save their lives? How am I going to preserve life? So after that mission, I went away and I thought, I get it now, I get it. And then I sort of broke things down. Now, I was baptized a Catholic, confirmed Catholic. I've turned more to Christianity over the last few years. But you know, I've always sort of had this religious sort of element in me. You know, I'm not a practicing, Catholic. I go to church every now and then. But I remember reading the Bible before I came out, and I'd keep hold of certain phrases. I also read the Quran as well, certain phrases of the Quran. But Romans chapter 12, verse 21 really stood out with me. And it says, be not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And I thought, if I can take that into the battlefield with me, you know, and I did all the time, don't be engulfed by evil, you know, because when you press the trigger for the first time, you can become like a dog on a bloodlust. You know, it's there, you know, I'm here, you know, that's evil taking over, right? It's like, don't allow that to now be at the forefront of everything that you do when you go through the next door or wherever you do. So I'd always have that verse in my head and I'll get back and I'll be not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And then this situation happens where I preserve life. So I get that message that's ingrained because that came to the forefront of I forgot about that, but it was lodged there somewhere. So that came to the forefront of my mind. So I remember after this mission, I sat down and I debriefed myself. I go through the thing, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? What could I do better? Blah, blah, blah. And I remember thinking to myself, and again, this religious element hit me. I thought, no one has the God-given right to take life. This is what I truly believe in my head. And I know this is what I was saying in my head. I think no one has a God-given right to take life. It's so precious. No one's got the God-given right to take life. However, if you think that you've got the right to take a life, I will simply deny you that right, therefore saving a life. So it didn't matter if I went in and you were the main guy that I needed to go and get. If you were there and you didn't think that you had the right to take life, then there's no way that I was pressing that trigger. But if I went into a situation and I thought that you were about to take someone's life, I would simply deny you that right. Go, you haven't got the right to take someone's life. I deny you that right. Therefore, the end goal was always saving a life. And once I've got that in my head, Liam, once I went on every single mission from those small bits of information. Right, yeah, I'm there, not there to kill the enemy. I'm there to preserve life. Romans chapter 12, verse 21. Be not overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. Right, I believe. This is from this information, this pool of information. I've now put it in here, and I've gone. No one has the God-given right to take life. However, if you think you've got the right to take life, I will simply deny you that right, therefore saving a life. And that whole process ended up with me saving a life. Guess what I can do? I can fully understand that. I can fully process that.
You was at peace with
Yeah,
it?
I was. There you go. There you go.
Because you was hunting down Taliban commanders. Now, knowing that a Taliban commander is your target, what kind of a feeling is that? Is that exciting? Because that's the epitome of evil you're hunting.
Yeah, you've. And again, you know, there's ways that I broke things down on my military journey. You know, I used to think, you know, when people surpass a certain level of evil, do they deserve to walk the planet? Again, you know, I went with that mind. Then I thought, who am I to make that decision? You know, but I did go through that phase where I did, you know, go, right, bloody hell, this person is, you know, whether we went on that mission or not, this person is responsible for blowing up so many Marines, US and UK. You know, you could go into with the mindset of that dog on a bloodlust, right? And I'm not saying that that's never happened. I'm not saying that, you know, but to be able to process these experiences, again, to look back on them, that's the most important part, is when you finish something that could potentially change your outlook on life, could potentially change your life, you have to come back off that situation and give yourself the time to debrief yourself, to process what's gone on and to fully understand it. And what you do, you almost join up the infinity loop. All right, the infinity loop's complete, and guess what you can do with that infinity loop? You can grab it and go, bang, you chuck it on the peg over there, it's done, right? That is so important for you to be able to move forward with your life and with everything that you do. Complete that infinity loop. That infinity loop might not be complete, all right? Okay, it's not always complete, but that doesn't belong on that hook. That belongs in your fucking pocket now, right? That's here. Because guess what? You know, it's still there. I'm not overthinking, I'm not overanalyzing, but in order for me to live with no regrets and to move forward and to move on with purpose, you know, that infinity loop, I need to finish that. And that might happen on the next mission. It might happen on the next personal situation when I'm on R&R, when I go back and, you know, I'm with my kids and I'm with my family and I go, that's put that infinity loop together, which happened with me when I went into a room and there were women and children there. That meant, whoa, you know, how am I going to preserve life?
Talk me through a scenario like that.
So, red hot mission. You know, the moment you breach the compound, bang, 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 you know, all hell breaks loose. So, you know, you're going from room to room, nothing but badness in there. Then all of a sudden, you know, you're in that mindset. You're in that code red aggression. You're in that mindset of and I call it extreme undisciplined violence. You know, people say that we're super disciplined, but when it's a moment of do or die, you're going to kill me or I'm going to kill you, it becomes undisciplined violence. Now, there's nothing disciplined about me, you know, me being in that moment for those split seconds where I'm like, I've got to do everything to neutralize you, because guess what? You're going to do everything to neutralize me. It's undisciplined violence. And that's why I don't deal too well with competitive sport, i.e. boxing and stuff like that, because it's a controlled sport. Don't get me wrong. It's great. I love it. I support it. I support MMA. But there's a level of discipline there, you know, that having done what I've done, I don't think I could go back to that. But it's having that switch to be able to go. And you know what that switch was? When I'd go into these places and I'd deal with these bad guys, and all of a sudden a situation would unfold where, could I press the trigger and justified it? Absolutely. You know, but it's a case of, you know, being able to flick that switch on and off, you know. But when you can flick that switch on and off between doing what needs to be done and then humanity kicking in, empathy, love kicking in, that's when you know that you're a good person. This is why I can sit back and I can go, I am a good person. Yes, I make mistakes, but there's no evil there. I'm a good person because I could have justified taken that room out 100% and gone, right, you know, look at where we've just come from. Look at those 3 rooms. Look at the courtyard we've just done, you know. And code red aggression in that, you know, like a dog on a bloodlust. But to be able to flick, when I realized that I could flick that switch and that I was human and that actually, you know, the epitome of humanity is actually there to preserve life. You know, I never want to take it.
That takes a hell of a man to walk into a room full of evil and still have the emotional intelligence to spot the little bit of good. And then that's the overriding factor. This is the priority here. I'm being swamped with evil, but that little bit of good there is why I'm here.
I've done that my whole life, Liam.
It's incredible.
The magnitude of a negative situation that completely engulfs everything. My childhood, my father passing away. I found a tiny ounce of positivity within those negative situations. Right? I've been doing it subconsciously my whole life.
It's who you are.
It's how I survived. It's how I got there. So when I look back and break it down, you just hit the nail on the head. So you're emotionally aware. You've got some mindset on you to be able to identify that, right? Because it's exactly that. You know, to be able to identify the ounce of positivity. Once you identify that, that whole black cloud of negativity goes away. This is the power of positivity. This is the power of good versus evil. This situation could be so evil, and all I need is an excuse to be a fucking good man. Give me that excuse, and I'll be a good man every single time over being evil. Because it's not in my, but it does not exist within me. And when I come off operations like that, and again, the importance of the debrief of going, why did I do that? You know, not overanalyzing anything. Fucking hell. And I, you know, that changed my whole perspective as well. Every single one of these missions, you know, not everyone, but I look back and I go, that's changed me for the better. That's made me a better person. That's made me, yeah. And it's putting yourself in those situations. But the overall factor, which I live with, which why I do things with a fucking full heart, is I know that good, my good will always overcome evil.
Yeah, if there was a beer in front of us, I'd drink to that. And we will win this battle because I do believe it is good versus evil out there now. I think it's so out of control now that good people need to merge, and they need to merge quick, fearlessly, unapologetically, and pull together, build your community, raise your own profile, speak out from a place of love. Has to be from a place of love, just like you said. And see, even when you're swamped with evil, spot the bit of love in the air, grip onto that, and just build and build and build.
That will fucking light you up like a fucking angel. It's just like, boom. It's like when I look at, I always say to people, if you're in a negative situation, if you look at it with a positive mindset, within that negative situation, you will identify one pin drop of positivity. That's all you fucking need. Bang. Boom. That would do me. Thank you very much. Wallop. I can now, you know, pass that on. And again, it's exactly the same with good and evil. And unfortunately, either evil is growing or it's always been there. And there's a lot more evil than we realized previously. So this is another battle that we're fighting.
Never thought of that. Has it always been this evil, or is it growing? You mentioned moving forward. So we'll talk about you slipping into Civvy Street now. But how did the military career come to an end? And then what was the transition into Civvy Street?
So again, you know, being bound to the Secrecy Act, I finished off my career in the Special Forces. And when I left, you know, I'd done at this time 3 tours of Afghanistan, Northern Ireland, Macedonia, Sierra Leone. I'd done everything that I'd set out to do.
Mission complete.
Mission complete, 100%. And this is why I'm so, you know, people go, oh, Ant, would you join the military? Would you go back? I'm like, I'm done. I'm content. I'm happy, you know. And it's almost, I think there's an element of combat fatigue there. You know, our generation of Iraq and Afghanistan, we're so combat hardened, you know, so combat hardened. And that's exactly what we went into. We went into combat. You know, we never went to war. When people go, oh, we went to war, I'm like, no, we never went to war. Look at World War I and World War II. Those poor fuckers went to war. They're in the trenches with trench foot. They're in the trenches not knowing when they're going to get fucking mortared, when they're going to get fucking blown up, when an airstrike's going to come on. Breach those fucking bunkers and make it to the next bunker. They were left with no supplies. No, that's war. You know, I would never degrade or insult a World War I and World War II veteran by saying that I've been to war. I've been to combat. You know, I've been into combat and heavy combat, you know, life or death combat, but I've never been to war. And again, you know, just that in my head, knowing that as well, it humanizes you. You know, it makes you realize, listen,
grounded. They
fought for our freedom. You know, I fought so nothing would happen in the UK that happened in America. That's what I fought for. Okay, but I didn't fought because our shores were going to get breached. You know, our country was going to get taken over, which is another conversation. But you know, I left because I was content. But being as mind strong as I am, and you know, when I left, I was just like, easy. You know, I'm going to go in, smash Civvy Street. You know.
And how old were you when you slipped into
32? So, but the good thing about it, when I slipped into Civvy Street at 32, I thought, I've got a whole new career in front of me. This is great. But then what I didn't realise and what came and bit me in the arse was I'd lost my identity. I'd lost who I was. I'd lost what I knew, which creates, when you lose an identity, when you lose your identity, it creates confusion. You don't know where you belong. You don't know, you know, what group you belong to. You don't know what rules you can adhere to. You don't know where you fit in. And that confusion creates frustration. Frustration creates anger. Anger creates violence. Okay, and this is why it's so important to realize the importance of the people. You know, of individuals, of how the people think and how the people naturally will progress into or spiral into or progress out of or spiral into. And that's what happened with me. I lost my identity. I was jumping from security job to security job. I was frustrated. I was hanging around with civvies now rather than my military mates. Confused. Yeah, where do I belong? You know, things dragging me back to the military, but you know, I'm enjoying civvy life. It's like, and again, that whole process took place, and I didn't know it's taking place until it was too late. So that confusion was creating frustration. I was frustrated because, you know, I'd be out with my military pals and you know, but not in the military. Then I'd be out with my civvy mates who were completely different, and you just didn't know I didn't fit in anywhere. You know, for the first time in years, after I'd served at such a level of authority, such a level of responsibility, you know, where you know, I was dealing with lives. You know, I was playing with lives, if you wish, even though I never went down that road. But if you look at it in that aspect, to being no one.
Do you feel lost?
Lost, 1,000,000%. You feel lost. You feel lost.
I felt lost before. It's pretty heavy.
But that's why your identity is so important. That's why your country's identity is so important. That's why your cultural identity is so important. Because if you do not have an identity, then again, where do you belong? Where's your sense of purpose? And then you will, because it happened to me, you'll fall into confusion, you get frustrated, you get angry. The next thing that happens is violence. And that's what happened to me when I left. Within a few months of leaving the military, I got into an altercation with a policeman.
Did you know he was a policeman?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And it transpired like this. And, you know, there's a lot of press out there about this situation. And I wish someone, I really do wish someone, I wish I'd, you know, you'd have someone, you know, like a investigative journalist, you know, like Tommy's done the last couple of ones that he's done. They've been factual, they've been really good. That would go out and they would go and get the court transcripts because this is exactly how it unfolded. I was in a nightclub with my pals. drinking away. Don't get me wrong; it's early hours of the morning. We've had a few beers. We're now on the vodkas and Red Bulls, and
Back in para mode.
Yeah, mate, I'm loving life. This is back in 2012. Yeah. So I'm there, and all of a sudden, my power's running. And there's a situation happening outside. So I come running outside, and I see this group of individuals, and I look at him, and I'm like, what, them lot? My pals are going, yeah, they're gobbing off. I start laughing. I'm like, lads, fucking hell, these groups just, I could tell straight away. I'm very, I can read people. I know I can read. I'm like, lads, we just fucking mow through them like no tomorrow. Get in a fucking taxi, right? So as this group's gobbing off, there's policemen are with them. They're gobbing off. So what I do is I take my pals around the corner and I put them in a taxi. I put every single one of them in a taxi, yeah? And then I go back into the club. And as I'm walking back into the club, this group of people are still here, right? And they're fucking mouthing off, they're gobbing off. Now, at this stage, I've trained so many people. I've also gone through a bit of police training. I've gone through 14 weeks at Hendon. I know to defuse a crowd and to defuse a situation, you get them out of eye shot so they can't see each other. And if you can, get them out of earshot, right? So I've done exactly that. I've taken my group away. I've put them all in a taxi. I come back, the same group of people with the police officer still there. So as I'm walking back into the go, we're going to fucking grab. So I walk over there and I go to the police officer, the fuck are you doing, mate? I shouldn't have done it, okay? But I'm walking back and I stop and I turn around and I go to the police officer, I've just taken my group of people away. You should know to take them around the corner and send them on their way. Why are they still standing here? He didn't like that. But that whole situation was on CCTV. So during my court, so when I'm getting charged, during my court, the judge looks at the CCTV and as he's looking through it, he says, who's the peacemaker? Me, right? He sees me putting everyone in there, going, lads, what are you doing? sort of. And he sees me walking go to walk back in the club and he sees me turn around. Now, this is what I shouldn't have done. I should have. Again, hindsight, it's a great thing, right? I should have just carried on walking. But I would say it wasn't a clash of, it wasn't preempted. It wasn't, it was a clash of authority, right? Because I was used to a few months earlier being in such a high position of authority and never taken advantage of that authority. I've never took advantage of my authority ever. But so, and this is all I can think. It was just a clash of authority. So I shouldn't have turned around and walked back. I was basically telling him to do his job. I've just done this. You should get them around the corner. And again, it's no excuse. I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have walked away. I was intoxicated. I should have just carried on walking. I've done my job. Happy days, And then I start arguing with the policeman. And he goes, mate, just go home. Bang, bang. And he, like this, go home. And at this stage, I'm just about to sort of walk. And bang, I get this in my chest. And in my head, I'm thinking, walk away, Ant. Walk away. This is the next thought process I'm getting. And then he says, I told you to fuck off. And he went, his finger came over again. And in my head, it happened in slow motion. In my head, I was like, no, because I knew. And as his finger hit me, bang, automatic response, dink, and then a whole world of pain, right? So getting a big scuffle with him. He's got his cosh out. I end up sort of wrestling with him. I throw him to the ground. And then as I throw him to the ground, I look at my hand. And I've got his cosh in my hand. And I'm like that. I've obviously disarmed him in a way, blah, blah. So I've looked at that and I've sort of come to at this stage. And I'm like, shit. So I start running off. I ditch the cosh down the drain, whatever, and run off. Anyway, whole situation, I get arrested. And when I look back at that situation, it was definitely a clash of authority. My actions warranted me going to prison, absolutely, because you've got to look at the actions, that I'd done. At no time, and again, this is why I wish people would get the transcripts. At no time did I touch a woman police officer. Never laid a finger. Even she says he doesn't lay a finger on me. But I get done with common assault because she was present and she feared for her safety and feared for her colleagues' safety. That's common assault. It doesn't do anyone any favors because even though I didn't touch the lady officer, I got done for common assault, so I got 1 month concurrent on top of my sentence. Now, what's really interesting about it is when I went first and saw my solicitor, this is what I talk about accountability, and this is going to be within my mayoral campaign policies. You know, I'm going to be talking about zero tolerance policies. I'm going to be talking about deterrent policies, but accountability policies. Who's accountable? Where did this happen? Who's borough? Who's the councillor? Who's the police HQ here? Who's the commissioner? Right, why is this happening on your turf? Except, you know, accountability just doesn't exist in modern day politics, especially the Mayor of London. Look at the Mayor of London. Holds himself to account 0 times. It's not even a case where he gets read out these statistics and he goes, do you know what? Actually, yeah, the crime is up and, you know, I've got to do better. Wow, I didn't know that. But now that I do, I'm going to do something about it. Zero accountability. So I talk about accountability.
He lies.
Yeah. Listen, look at Keir Starmer. He's lied to get into position of power. Everything that he said, he's gone against. But the reason why people can go, oh, you've done this, it's got to hold myself accountable. I went to my lawyer. My lawyer was he's smiling. He looked at me and he went, Ant, you've got PTSD. And I went, what do you mean? He said, how many tours of Afghanistan did you do? I said 3. So how long have you been out of the military? I said months. He said, well, you've got PTSD. So if you say you've got PTSD, we can play this. He said, you won't get sent. I can guarantee you not to get a sentence if we go down that route. That's what lawyers and barristers do. You know, they're looking for a way out. They're looking for a loophole. And I said, this exact word, face to face, I said, but I haven't got PTSD. And he said, do you want to go to prison? I said, obviously not. He said, well, this will guarantee you an out. And I remember thinking, right, I can say I've got PTSD, but then I have to go down this route of doing these courses, of living a lie, lying to myself. I said, this is gonna end really, really nasty. You know, I'm gonna have to live with this whole, he had PTSD and what was it like, and this whole victim mentality. And I was like, I haven't got PTSD and I'm not gonna say that I've got PTSD. He said, well, then expect a prison sentence. I said, fine. I said, my actions, you know, well, I'll take whatever it is. Didn't kick up a fuss. I could have gone down that route 100%. Didn't kick up a fuss. Yeah, guilty. I thought I was pleading guilty to ABH, which was the original charge. I ended up pleading guilty, which I didn't know, to Section 20, GBH. Because I went into magistrate's court to plead guilty, which I thought was for ABH. And then they said, I'll see you in Crown Court. And I was like, my lawyer was just like, don't worry about it, you know, just go along with it. No broken bones, no bruises, nothing, right? But talk about accountability. And I can remember when I got sentenced, so I got sentenced to 14 months, had to serve 7. I ended up serving just over 4, and I got out on good behaviour first time, straight to a DCAT, you know, no threat, etc., etc.
Were you treated well in there?
Yeah, I was treated well. I had my own cell. I started off mopping the toilets and, you know, getting a job straight away, the jobs that no one wanted to do. Then I went on to teaching inmates how to read and write. I'd go around to their cells at night, teach them how to read, teach them how to do basic maths, etc., etc. Then I worked as a gym orderly towards the back end. I spent 2 months in Chelmsford and then on the Sheppey Islands, the remaining 2.5. But I remember when I was in court and the hammer went down, I felt so much of a relief, even though he said you're doing 14 months, bang. Because I knew exactly what I needed to do. I needed to go in there and I needed to be the best prisoner that I can be, which was a challenge to me. I was super excited. I was like, at least I know what I need to do. Right, here's what I need to do. In order for me to get out early, I can get out on tag. It's my first offence. I'm going, you know, I could have gone straight to a DCAT, but they put me in holding in Chelmsford, which is a BCAT. And the reason why I stayed there for 2 months is because they didn't want to move me because I was benefiting the prison, right? So I was doing all my bits and
doing good work.
Yeah, doing good work. Yeah, but that's in my nature. I'm a good person, right? Going back to being a good person. Yeah, it was one of those moments in life that went back like that. And the lesson that I learned from it, mate, from going to prison, it wasn't any hardship. I'd done 3 tours of Afghanistan. You know, I could do this. You know, it was the shame. For the first time in my life, I had a family outside. I wasn't providing a roof over their head. I wasn't putting food on their table. I wasn't there for them. I wasn't there to take them to school. I wasn't there for my wife, who was always picking up the pieces. You know, I'd been there throughout my whole military career. He was that one common denominator in my life that gave me the safety and security and the balance to be the person that I am. It was such a shameful experience that the shame killed me. The shame will stop me from ever going back. Not the hardship. There's no hardship in there, you know. The shame. And I looked and I thought, of one situation, not preempted, just the one stupid mistake that I made, that I went, do you know what? I did make that mistake. Took so much away from me.
So you've done jail. Who dares wins? We got to touch base on that.
Yeah.
To live the life that you'd lived up until that point, including jail, and then become a household name. You're moving in celebrity circles, extremely popular, great show, loved by the entire country. How did that happen? Some of your favourite experiences. There was one in particular where you pulled a guy in the office for stolen valour.
Yeah.
And I really want to talk about that because there's a lot of people that still do that, and they need to understand that there's men like you that have lost friends, and you cannot pretend that you served when you haven't. That was a big load of questions into one. So just to simplify it, who dares wins? How did that happen? How did you enjoy it?
Who Dares Wins sort of fell on my lap. You know, Channel 4 were like, right, we're going to do this series. I don't know if you saw the old series called SAS Are You Tough Enough, with Eddie Stone and a few people, McAleese, probably about 10, 12 years prior.
Right.
So we saw this as a new revamped SAS Are You Tough Enough, but it's going to be called SAS Who Dares Wins. You know, it's been done before. We're just going to put a new spin on it. You know, younger generation, more combat hardened. Don't get me wrong, the older generation, finely tuned, you know, trained to the max, you know, really, really finely tuned. But any sort of old school generation will say that the new school generation, i.e. my generation, is a lot more combat hardened because, you know, our missions were Iraq, Afghanistan, and away we go. We're out the door more or less every single day. So I just thought, yeah, a new revamped version. We had to get it signed off by the military, which we did in the end. And then I remember doing it at the time. I was working in Sierra Leone. I was living in Sierra Leone, and I was training their troops out there. Private contract, my own contract. And then this came along. I said, "Yeah, let's do it. You know, let's see what it gives." So I go and do this show. I'm the chief instructor. They love my personality. They love, you know, how I deal with people. That's the whole mechanics of it, is how I'm emotionally aware with people, how I can tap into people's mindset, how I can really identify if something's wrong, going back to that emotional intelligence that I spoke about. So we do the show. I fly back out to Sierra Leone to finish off the contract. And then, you know, lo and behold, just before it starts, Channel 4 say, Ant, the press are loving this. Come back. We need to, they want to interview you. They want to know who Ant Middleton is, blah, 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 blah. First episode of the series comes out. I think it's one of 8 episodes. And it blows. It just blows overnight. These new generation special forces guys, you know, we haven't seen them since your Andy McNabs and your McAleeses and your Eddie Stones. You know, I come out, I've got a nice glossy beard, you know, I've got the tight tops on, you know, all the lads do. You know, we hit that generation of, you know, when social media was getting all the hype and, you know, just at the start of it, really.
Yeah, perfect timing.
So it's perfect timing, mate. So, you know, it booms. And the thing about it, the moment that it boomed, you know, from filming the first series to the second series, you know, my whole life had changed. It was a case of, don't get me wrong, it's a bit of a slow burner, but then we do the second series, you know, and it flows again. And all of a sudden I'm being asked to do, you know, reenact the mutiny on the Bounty from 1789, you know, which I go and do. I give my everything. You know, I lose 21 kilograms on that show. You know, it's real life for me. I've given a lot to Channel 4 at this stage. So third series comes along, smash it out the ballpark. Viewing figures are through the roof. Then I go and do Extreme Everest. I go and climb Mount Everest for Channel 4. You know, I nearly die on Mount Everest. You know, I'm doing these raw, authentic, you know, that mutiny on the Bounty, 60 days long, I lost 21 kilograms. You know, I put my everything, and it took me a long time to get over that. And then as the series are rolling, I'm jumping into these, other sort of adventurous stroke survival sort of formats and commissions that I'm getting. And then it was really strange, mate, because that whole first 3, 4, 5 series, it's like Ant Middleton, the role model, he's a mindset guru. Look how he treats people. He's like, he can get into the hearts and into the minds of these individuals, change their lives. And it was from the recruits that used to come off the back end of it. We used to change them. I never say that I can change someone's life, because that's down to you to change your life. So, when people say you've changed my life, I said, no, you've done that. You've had to make that consistent decision to change your life. I've given you the tools along the way. And all of this was coming out, and it's just like, wow, this is amazing. And all of a sudden, overnight, all this sort of Me Too movement came in. The whole woke mindset fucking started. That was just happened overnight, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it was just like, whoa, and this whole
culture.
cancel culture and this woke movement came into play. So all of a sudden, I went from being this, this role model for young people, this mindset guru. About this stage, I've written 3 books, all #1 bestsellers. First Man In has sold over 1 million copies. The Fear Bubble that I've done, when I talk about harnessing your fear and making it work for you. Then my 3rd book, Zero Negativity, about the power of a positive mindset. These books, they've sold over 2 million copies combined.
And they would change lives.
The feedback that I was getting from it. And then all of a sudden, that whole woke movement came in, and we started introducing females onto the course. I'm not saying it's a cause of this, but then, but I'm not treating the females any different to the men. So I'm going, yeah, blah, 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 I get it. And it's like, oh, Ant Middleton's screaming at women. Oh, Ant Middleton's putting men against women when they're boxing. So all of a sudden, this whole woke movement that came on board, the production started to change. The production, they started putting some really weird people in charge that knew nothing about the military, this whole sort of pride element came in, didn't it? And we were getting these production managers and these producers. I can see it slowly happening. And all of a sudden they're like, right, we've got to do this. We've got to do this with the program. We've got to do that. We need women at the end. And, but I'm like, well, the course doesn't work like that. I run a course, you film it, and the channel will turn it into a show. The moment we compromise that course mentality into a show mentality, you're going to compromise the recruits. They're going to go, oh, it's a fucking show. Ant's just up there screaming and shouting. I get them into a course mentality. You're on a fucking military course, okay? They forget about the cameras very, very quick.
Yeah, you didn't sign up to be an actor.
No. And I made it clear from the beginning. I run a course, you film it, the production company film it, between the production company and the channel, you can turn it into a show, okay? Because I know they can't manipulate it because I'm being raw, I'm being real, I'm running it as a military course. And then they started, right, now that we've got women involved, we need 3 women at the end or 2 women at the end. We need, it started getting all fucking weird.
They slipped
right?
DEI into it.
Tick boxing before capability and performance. Before I get the capability, performance. I get the tick boxing at the end. I get if I've got I can tick that box at the end. However, when you put tick boxing in front of capability and performance before it even starts, you're scripting a show.
Fancy slipping DEI into a show like that where it's all about kill or be killed.
It went.
There's no time for that nonsense.
It went bad because the production thought that they knew how to run this format. Only I know how to run this format.
Was it heartbreaking when that happened? When you saw that happen with your own eyes?
Yeah. I done a series and I was like, I'm gone, and it was really bad. And I'm not doing it anymore. Now I made the mistake of telling someone that I was going to leave. So ultimately, what they done, they pushed me before I could jump. The whole thing is it was a power play. Is Ant Middleton bigger than SAS, or is SAS bigger than Ant Middleton? Right. So when this all happened. And it was heartbreaking, mate, because I put so much time and effort, not only into SAS Who Dares Wins, but into Channel 4. I put my heart and soul into Channel 4. I'd done The Mutiny on the Bounty, which nearly killed me. Extreme Everest, which nearly killed me.
That was insane, by the way.
Yeah.
That was, if you've not seen Ant Middleton climb Everest in the most severe conditions ever, you must YouTube it and watch that.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. And never once did Channel 4 come up to me and go, pull me into the office and go, "Ant, what's going on here? The production company's saying this, this, and this about you. What's your take on it? What's your view on it?" And especially with everything that I'd done for Channel 4, you know, the authentic, real, raw, gritty TV that I gave them from my heart. You know, they didn't have, when all this kicked off and I said, I'm going to leave, and they said, you know, never did they pull me into the headquarters and go, "Ant, what's this all about? We appreciate that you've done this, this, and this, and this, and this. Let's hear your side of the story." That never happened. So that's my gripe with Channel 4. I don't hold grudges, and I don't. But that's that I thought to myself, wow. But then what was really strange, and which I suppose saved my credibility, you know, on understanding, did Ant Middleton really get sacked by Channel 4 or the production company, is I'd filmed the last series. Between me filming the last series and it airing, I was supposedly sacked between that. So the day that I was sacked, a couple of months later, they aired the series that I'd filmed. And I was still in the series. So if it wasn't a power play, if it wasn't Ant Middleton's going to leave, shit, we better push him before he could jump, and it was something serious or even semi-serious, anything that, you know, they would have to have pulled the whole series. But they didn't. I was still in it. And that's when people started to wake up. They were like, oh, wow. But not only that, you know, when I came out and I said, yeah, it was, you know, going a bit woke, it was going, you know, it was just didn't feel right. It wasn't what the show was originally with what I first done to the format. I wrote the first 2-3 series, literally on the back of a cigarette packet. You know, the next series that aired, normal, not the celebrity version, the normal version, which only lasted one more series after that before it got shit canned because the viewing figures were really bad, which again did, you know, I did have a little smile on my face, but it did break my heart at the same time because I put so much effort into it. When the next series, the very next series aired without me as chief instructor, without me in it, 4 women got to the end. 2 women pass. One's white, one's black. So it just solidified my explanation on why I wanted to leave. Because of that whole DEI being pushed in, that whole woke narrative being pushed in. So not only did they do me a favor by airing my series after they'd supposedly sacked me, but then the next series, everything that I said why I wanted to leave came into fruition. You know, that whole pushing that narrative of, you know, there's certain color here. So I don't give a fuck what color you are, what gender you are. If you're capable and you perform well, you'll get to the end of the course. You might not pass it, but you get to the end of it. If you are super capable, and I think you've got the attributes of a soldier to pass the course, I don't care if you're black, white, pink, you know, transgender, I don't get, you'll pass the course, okay? So that was the whole thing. So those 2 things done me a huge favor within the TV world. And when you look and you dig back on it and you break it down, it's obvious that it was a power play.
Proved your point completely.
Proved my point completely. And this is why I still carry on and do what I do. I then went over to Australia. Same thing, not the same thing happened, but let me run my course, let me run my course. Production company step in. You know, health and safety, think they run the show. Right, you know, that didn't go as well as last. Well, why do you think that is? Why do you think that this series, where I don't take full control of the course, didn't go as well? Because you didn't take full control of it. Correct. We move forward.
We do move forward. But one more question, because I want to move on to culture. You said a couple of things to me off camera. But before I get to that stage, when Stolen Valor, the guy that put on his CV that he was,
yes, correct,
that he was a para, and you pulled him in the office and you gave him a fucking good grilling, shut the fuck up, screamed in his face, rightly so. Just how insulting is that? Just to clarify, and then how did that little scenario end?
To be fair, I lost my shit. Unprofessionally lost my shit that day, where I shouldn't have, but I did. That was just a natural burst of, and I remember just thinking, "And settle down," because I tore him a new arsehole. And of course, it's insulting. You know, I couldn't help that reaction. I wish I would have been a bit more disciplined with it. But, you know, I didn't teeter into that extreme, you know, anger. I just you know, I was like, whoa, to the point where, you know, I could have, but I didn't. And it's the whole thing, isn't it? I've picked up body parts, I've repatriated friends, I've buried multiple friends, all for the greater cause of protecting our country, protecting our people. And at the time, the Queen, you know, I was serving the Queen, I was serving the country. I was super proud to do that, and then you're trying to take that away from us. We don't ask for anything. We're not heroes. We're just doing our job. You know, I don't ask for tea and medals. I don't want a fucking medal. You know, I'll have a cup of tea, right? As long as it's English breakfast tea, then I'll have it. But I don't want fucking medals. We're not heroes. And then you trying to fucking take that status, you know, trying to fucking get jobs for veterans that leave and can't get jobs. You've taken one job away from someone that deserves that job, that probably needs that job. That job is probably going to save their life, going to save their family. One person, that's the example of one person. How many people out there do it? It's and you just think to yourself, yeah, you haven't bled for that. You haven't, you know, you haven't stood shoulder to shoulder with me to warrant that title, to warrant that reputation of what people will think about you.
Let me tell you a story and tell me if you think I've done the right or wrong thing. The right or wrong thing, should I say. I had a guest come on over a year ago. He blew up on the internet for doing some real savagery, is the only thing I can describe it, in someone's kitchen. Managed to bump into him, as luck would have it, or bad luck would have it. Anyway, he claimed that he was a sergeant major in the military. He was a para. He had the wings tattooed on him. He had the sergeant stripes tattooed on him.
Making me go back to my SAS Who Dares Wins days.
Yeah, so he talked the talk. He looked like he was built like a brick shit house, fit as a fiddle. He had the tattoos on him, and he told me that he was a para. So we arranged to do the podcast. It was in my home at the time. You could see that he was, I would say, probably psychotic, but as I'm interviewing him, now I used to do my due diligence during the interviews because it felt more organic to me. Now I do a lot of research before we sit down because I think it honours the guest more. But as he's telling me about his war stories, I knew pretty quick that he's lying to me. And it blew my mind because of the tattoos, the shape, the stories, and he's exaggerating these stories to the point of, well, this is like an Arnold Schwarzenegger film. You may as well be telling me that you're hanging off the fucking wing of an aeroplane. But I let him continue. And I've got a habit of doing this. If I feel someone's bullshitting me, I let them believe that I'm believing them so that they carry on. And I see just how far they're going to push the bullshit. So I went along with it and pretended that I believed him. Now, I shelved that interview for maybe 2 months. And I said to him, are you sure you want me to air that? Are you happy with the way that went? Are you definitely sure you want me to publish that interview for the world to see? Absolutely. He was keen as mustard. He was desperate for me to publish that interview. So I did. I put it out there for the world to see that it was complete fabrication, to the point where certain people thought that I was buying into his bullshit because that's how convincing I was being. I knew damn well it was a lie. We watched it back.
Stringing him along.
It was just mind-blowing. But I thought, you know what? If you're going to walk the streets and try and take credit for something you haven't done and other men have, I'm going to air you out to dry. I've never done that with another guest. I'm not here to shit on people. And I did give him the option to bail out. We don't have to publish this.
Yeah.
I didn't let him. I still didn't say to him, I know you're lying.
Yeah.
But I just gave him the option. I think I've done the right thing. You may think, actually, you shouldn't have.
Give him enough rope. Listen,
and do you think
adults,
was I right to publish that?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, especially because you gave him the option.
And he got called out real bad.
And yeah, it's like with adults, and this is what I say, you've got adults acting like fucking kids nowadays, kids acting like babies, right? It's like you're an adult. Hold yourself accountable. Yeah, listen, there's the rope. There's the rope. Yeah, trip up on it, which he did, which you went, you sure you want me to do this? And he knows he's lying. Or take it and go and fucking hypothetically hang yourself. You know, that's exactly what he done. Listen, fucking hold yourself accountable. Accountability is fucking huge with everything that I do. Because when I hold myself accountable, I can go, do you know what? Yeah, I can move on. And listen, probably the best lesson in accountability. But what a fucking... Why? This is what I don't get. Why?
Just insane. I think he learned a valuable lesson because he then asked me to pull it down afterwards, and I said no.
Good.
I said, you went out of your way to sit there and lie to me for 2 hours and insult soldiers, men that have lost their lives and their friends. I said, it's staying and you can take the backlash. Don't read the comments if you don't like it, but what you've done was unforgivable, because you've got all these groups on social media now that call out Walter Mitty's.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the definition of a Walter Mitty, is right someone that tells you that they've done a certain military career and they haven't.
Let's move on to you making the capital great again, safe again. But there's a few things you said to me. So we had dinner on Saturday after the London demonstration, and you said to me, they're my people. They're my people. What did you mean by that? And then we're talking about 3 million proud British men and women in the capital of our country. And you said to me, Liam, they're my people.
I think if anyone can say that they're my people, it's me. Because I fought for my people. I fought for my country. I fought for my Queen. And I always mention the Queen because I remember signing and swearing on the oath. And, you know, Queen and country, and the Queen bit stood out on me. And, you know, and for the people as well. And for the people standing next to me. So when I say it, I mean it. You know, I'm not saying my people. It's coming out because, you know, I look at those flags. I look at the pride. I look at, you know, I can feel it. Like I said on the day, but I don't see the culture. I feel it. And it's my people. It's the people that bring the culture alive, the energy, the motivation that bring it alive. And they're my people because it's in my DNA. I know that they're my people because I can feel it. I can't explain it to you, but they're my people. I've served my people before. I've served my country before. I've served my Queen before. And I very much see this as a revisit to service. I truly believe, and when I spoke to my wife about this, she's like, Ant, we've got a lovely life. Are you sure you want to go back and do this? I support you if you do. And she could see it in my eyes. And she said, I haven't seen that look in your eyes since you deployed to Afghanistan. She was just like, so I know that I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but just think about it, you know. And I said to her, I was born to serve. So this Mayor of London role is I'm going back, not fighting outside of my country to protect my people in my country. I'm coming in to fight for my country from its capital to serve my people. It's a calling that I cannot ignore, Liam. As much as I fucking want to ignore it, and I want to fucking go and live my life, and I've, you know, financially stable, beautiful family, kids loving life. My moral compass won't allow me to do that, knowing that I can do the job. No, I don't want anyone else to do that job because I know that I want to do it. I need to do it. There's no one that can do that job better than myself. And it takes me back to when I was point man in the military. I didn't want anyone else to take that position because I knew they'd take it because they would step up. Yeah, my men would step up. But I knew that they didn't love it, and I was obsessed by it, and that, you know, fucking took in every single moment of it like I would. I was the man to do that job. You know, that's fucking hell. Yeah, we're going into an IED area before we hit the target. Bang. And fucking hell, you got a mind sweep before you put me in. This is my fucking job. You know, a sense of pride, the sense of fucking purpose, the sense of belonging. And it's exactly the same feeling. It's igniting me again to go back in, to serve my people, to serve my country, and to put them at the forefront of of the neglect, the decades of neglect that they've witnessed, that they've had to endure, that I've seen. And the thing about myself, Liam, and you know this, I almost see myself as the mediator between the people and the politicians that no one can relate to, the politicians that don't fucking walk their fucking constituencies, that don't walk their cities, the politicians that have gone to all of these high universities that the people on the ground cannot relate to. There's such a gap. I see myself, honestly, as filling that gap and being a mediator between the two. You put me on the street with a tramp, I'll sit down and eat some chips with him. You put me in the Houses of Commons with MPs or with presidents or vice presidents, which I've spoken to, I'll put on a suit. I can feel those gaps, but my ear is close to the ground. I hear the fucking cries. I hear the cries, mate, and I can't fucking sit on my hands. I can't sleep at night when I can hear these cries because my ear is fucking on the ground. My boots are on the ground. I can feel the vibrations through my fucking body. I know that I need to do something.
When you said those words, Liam, they're my people, I was there. I felt the energy. I saw the love. I was drowning in the atmosphere. And when you said, Liam, they're my people, I saw that those people looked at you as their person.
Yeah.
That happened.
Yeah.
In real time, and I witnessed it. So it doesn't matter what the mainstream media report, because they're always going to want to belittle the patriot movement, which is where politicians have gone so wrong for so long. They're not boots on the deck.
Well, so detached.
Completely not detached. And we've now got someone that's completely attached and emotionally invested, and he's for the people. And I'm very excited about what's to come. And I mean, you know this anyway, and there's no point me trying to pretend I'm on the fence and this is a non-biased interview. I'm just thrilled that we can get behind someone that's going to make a change. And I can't wait to read the comments, because I'm telling you, you have got an army behind you. You've got every self-respecting British man and woman in your corner. And I've seen it with my own eyes. You also said something to me which I want to kickstart the whole Mayor campaign off. You spoke to me about the cultural umbrella. Can you define that in your own words for the audience?
Yes. Confusion, frustration, anger, and violence. That's what our people are feeling right now. They're going through that process. I've been through it. Do you know why? Lack of identity. Our culture is our identity. British culture is British history. You know, we've got such a rich history, proud history that's intertwined with Christian values, morals, and principles. Okay? Doesn't mean you have to be religious or you have to practice that faith to know that Christian beliefs, values, and morals actually work. They're just, they're fair. They've worked for the last 1,000 odd years. They are up to 20 years ago when we started to really collapse, and our culture started to get suppressed. Therefore, we started to get suppressed. Our identity started to get suppressed. And I say to people, they say we're a multicultural country. It's being indoctrinated into our schools, that language. We're a multicultural country. We're a multicultural country. We're a multicultural country. Boom, 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 being driven. Well, if we are a multicultural country, if we are of all cultures, that means we are cultureless, okay? And this is done by design. If we're cultureless, that means we have no identity. When we have no identity, what happens? Confusion, frustration, anger, violence. We're probably at the anger right now. So what's really, really important is the preservation of our identity, the preservation of our culture. Christianity, whether you like it or not, or let's call it Christian beliefs, values, and morals, whether you're religious or not, are intertwined in our justice system. They're intertwined in our calendar year, all the way from Easter holidays to Christmas holidays to having Sunday off, going to church. What happens when something gets suppressed is a takeover starts, or a replacement thereof, which we are in that replacement phase. Over the years, look at our school assemblies. I mentioned it briefly on the rally. Look at our school assemblies. I remember being in a school assembly and used to sing Christian hymns. I didn't know that at the time. I sat next to, Johnny, who we had one book between us. We'd pull the book and mess around, and then you'd have someone behind you singing louder than everyone else, and we'd all be laughing. But it brought us together. It brought a sense of community, a common denominator. It brought our identity together. Our identity, our British culture, was being ingrained into us without us even realising it. And this was from the soldiers of World War II, the soldiers of World War I. When they came back and they just thanked God that they were alive. And we rebuilt on these we rebuilt our modern day society where it was thriving up to 20 to 25 years ago on Christian values, morals and belief. That's our identity. So we're not of all cultures. We are a British cultured country. It's in the title, Great Britain, accepting of multiculturalism, or with a multicultural society, okay? If we are of all cultures, then what culture, what values, what morals, what principles do we adhere to? What law and order do we adhere to? You might be in your culture, it might be okay when a young girl comes on her period and you say, oh, right, she's ready to have a baby. What, at 12, 13? That's not in our culture. That's not in our principles. It doesn't sit within our moral compass. It's not right. And what it does, and this is what I say to people when I go a bit deeper about the British cultural umbrella, it shelters. Now that shelter provides you safety, or it's meant to provide you safety. It doesn't anymore. Huge part of my policies, the first one, safety and security of the people. But it's meant to provide you safety. It's meant to provide you security. It's meant to treat everyone fairly. You are innocent until proven guilty. That comes under the British cultured umbrella. So talk about fairness. But then either side, you have the boundaries of this umbrella. This umbrella will provide and shelter you from, it'll give you protection. Like I said, fairness. It's there to serve you. But there's boundaries with this umbrella. The rain falls either side of this. That's our way of life. That's our law and order. These are our rules and regulations, our boundaries. You step outside of them, you're going to feel it. You need to remain within those boundaries. So what it does, it gives us structure. It gives us structure on what we have built to a thriving modern day society up to 20 years ago. Okay, you take that away, what happens? Frustration into anger, anger into violence. This is what's happening at the moment. So it's really, really important that we reinstall our British culture, i.e. our British identity. That gives us boundaries, gives us purpose, gives us drive, gives us fairness, gives us a safe and secure environment to work in. We need to reestablish that. By all means, come in, practice your religion, practice, do what you need to do. However, you must respect and adhere to our British cultured umbrella, the rules and regulations, the boundaries that are set there. If you don't, this isn't the country for you. If you don't respect it, this isn't the country for you. If you're hostile against it, even if you're a British citizen, you might have been born here, even if you're a British citizen, if you're hostile against our British culture, you do not belong here. Go somewhere where you agree with and embrace their culture. Go there. And I've always been taught that. I will not go to a country where I don't respect the culture and where I don't respect the rules and regulations. If I don't do that, then I won't go there. And I've always been taught that. And that's why it's so important to reestablish and to preserve our culture. And in turn, we preserve British lives. And this is the really important thing. We're preserving our children's lives, which are fucking being taken away from us fucking on a daily basis. We're preserving our women's lives, and we're preserving our citizens' lives. We're preserving my people's lives. This is the importance of establishing. This will solve so many problems if we can reestablish and reinstall our British identity.
And you see what you've just said there so perfectly. We need to normalise those words, those sentiments, that meaning. That needs to echo through the land. No longer can those words be considered taboo.
No.
Like it's gonna lead us to destruction if we fear saying those words, if we tiptoe around those words. Bring back British culture. Let's end this on a real high.
Let's go, mate. Let's go.
Let's end this on one almighty high. What people can look forward to when you do become the Mayor of London. We know that, the duty of a mayor transport, ULEZ, policing, infrastructure. How are you going to make London safe again? And then we'll just skim through a few things that you're going to do that Sadiq Khan has failed to do. First and foremost, how are you going to make London safe again?
First and foremost, I am running for Mayor of London. I have got a really good political barrister who signed me off. He said, yep, you're good to go. There's nothing stopping you from running for Mayor of London. Hence why I'm running for Mayor of London. Safety and security, it's going to be some tough pills to swallow, zero tolerance policies. I'm going to have to bring in some zero tolerance policies that if any normal citizen adheres to the law, they go, these are great. Zero tolerance policies on certain crimes. Knife crime, gun crime, sexual harassment, rape, paedophilia, whatever you want to. There's 15 of them that I've got in my chart so far, but they come hand in hand. So the idea is to action these zero tolerance policies, which will in turn act as deterrent policies. Super important deterrent policies. If you do this, this will happen. Right, I will think twice about doing it. Deterrent must be there. That comes from our police force. Having the right police force, I will go with quality over quantity, and I will provide our police force with the top cover that they need, so they can carry out their duties to protect and serve the people to the best of their ability. No two-tiering, I call it double standards. No double standards. Along with, so you've got the zero tolerance policies. This is safety and security, the deterrent policies, and then there's the accountability policies. So the accountability policies, and I'm going to lay it out as an example. There's been a fatal crime that's happened, a fatal stabbing that's happened in a certain borough. Who am I going to? As Mayor of London, I'm going straight to that borough, straight to the council leader, and I'm going, why is this happening on your patch? But not only that, I'm not only going to him or her, I'm then going to the police HQ of that borough. And I'm going up to the inspector and I'm going, why is this happening on your patch? Now you two, between you fucking better sort this out, and this better not happen again. However, I want a full report on why you think this has happened and what we can do to prevent this from happening. Accountability. I will turn up on their office, at their office door, and I will be relentless. So what needs to happen as well for the accountability policies to happen is for automatic investigations to be triggered. So if there's a fatal stabbing on your patch, an automatic investigation will be triggered into the council, into the borough, and into the police HQ. These are forms of policies that I'm working on for safety and security, which I think are super, super important to keep the people safe. Because if you feel safe, then you start to trust. And when you start to trust, you start to build communities. When you start to build communities, you start to build towns. When you start to build towns, you start to build cities. When you start to build cities, you start to build countries. So it's got to start. This is why I want the London position so badly, because it's the heartbeat of England. It's the crown jewel of our country. And if we can get it right and set the example there, then we'll be free sailing. So safety and security is hugely, hugely important, and it's something that I know. I'm an expert in that in that field. It's something that I know, but also the police. We need to really strip them down to the formidable force they once were. I had a police officer I was speaking to, and I walked past Parliament the other day. There's a police officer on the other side of the gate, and I was speaking to him, and he's like, "I hope you get in, Ant." I said, "I really, really do." I said, "You guys haven't got the top cover." I said, "You're petrified of doing your job because you're going to lose your job." I said, "I get it. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your family. You're going to lose your pension." I said, "It's just not worth it." I said, "I get it." I said, "Because you've got no top cover. You've got no top cover for someone to go, no, actually, yeah, he might have made a mistake or she might have made a mistake, but I've got you. Okay, go back to work, keep busy, and then, you of course there's going to be some bad eggs, but, you should give people the top cover so they can carry out their duties. Police officers will do it to the best of their abilities, bar the DEI program. I'm not saying all of them, but the majority of them, we need to sort that out. This police officer, before I left, he said to me, and I can't wait for you to become Mayor of London. He said, because the moment that day happens, our hands will be untied. We will be able to do our job of service and protection. This is what he said to me. And I was just like, I grabbed that and I thought, you want me to untie your hands? Well, this is what needs to happen.
What about cultural events that the mayor has power over, like Notting Hill Carnival, for example? Murders, stabbings every single year. I want people to celebrate their own culture, but it's got to be policed and managed. Would you change the approach? Would you shift the direction of that? Would you have it somewhere like Hyde Park, for example, policed correctly?
If you install the
umbrella.
law and order, the umbrella, you watch everything fall into place. And then I talk about you preserve that, you preserve life. And that has a huge, huge knock-on effect. But Christmas, for example, you know, talk about our culture slowly being taken away from us. You know, I talked about the schools, about the school assemblies being gone, the Christmas nativity play taken out of our schools. You know, they're slowly, and I talk about suppression of culture until you become culturalist, no identity, then the takeover happens. You know, we need to reinstall all of this. That's what I say to people. If you walk past a church, that's why you're here. The freedom why you can walk around the street. Go into the church, speak to the priest or the pastor, donate a couple of quid. You know, that's our culture. They keep it alive. We've taken our eye off the ball. Not anymore. We cannot afford to take our eye off the ball. Christmas. Why isn't our capital city lit up with Christmas lights, Christmas trees everywhere, presents everywhere? Same with Easter. No more Easter bunny. No more Easter, you know, at schools when they go and do Easter egg hunts. Where's that gone? You can't even call them Easter eggs anymore. What are they called in shops now? Chocolate eggs, festival eggs, whatever. All of that stops. We've taken our eye off the ball. We've allowed it to happen. It's death by 1,000 cuts. We are close to the final fucking cut. And this is where I come in, mate. No more. I want to preserve my culture. I want to preserve my people. And I want to preserve my country. And I will do it no matter what. Once I step foot into this political space, mate, I'm here. It's a new career, like my media career. I'm here for 20 to 25 years. I'm 44 years old. Once I start campaigning, that bridge is burnt. That media bridge is burnt. I cannot never go back to that. That's what politics does.
Would you allow Ramadan to take so much limelight as it has been taken over the years under Sadiq Khan, when Christmas is being suppressed and Ramadan's being celebrated on a huge level?
I would prioritise Christian culture. However, of course, Ramadan, come and celebrate. But the priority is our culture. The priority is our identity, which is intertwined in our very foundations, and that's Christianity. It must be predominant. It must be celebrated over everything, and it must take centre of pride over the whole country. By all means, come in and celebrate, but fit into this umbrella. Celebrate what you want, because we're going to preserve you anyway. We're going to protect you anyway. And any normal, you know, religious practicing individual would see that these boundaries are just. They're fair. They've worked for the last 1,000 to 2,000 years. The only reason why they're not working now is because that umbrella, that British culture umbrella, is close to collapse. I'm going to get that. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to fucking go to town on repairing that, and to ensure that you as an individual, that you feel safe within your own capital city. And we talk about ULEZ and transportation.
And housing as well. Who would you prioritise there?
But listen, if you structure that umbrella, it's very obvious who we prioritise.
The answer's the same once the umbrella's in place.
Preserves everything, mate. Preserves everything. But also, you know, when people say, what are you going to do about transport and logistics? I'm like, I'm going to open up London to its people. I will open up London to its people so they can enjoy their capital city, so they can enjoy the crown jewel, the energy, the motivation that I'm going to put back into our capital city. They can enjoy all of that because guess what? It belongs to them above anyone else.
So I don't spoil the flow. I normally ask people where can they find you, but I'm going to put all of your social media links in the description. So that's that covered. Plus, I'm sure most people know exactly where to find you if they've not found you already. But my final couple of questions. Who is Ant Middleton and why do people need to get behind you?
I'm a patriot. I'm a soldier. I can never get rid of that. But I'm here to serve. I'm a servant. I'm a servant of the people. No matter which way you look at it, I've always served the people. I've always served my people. And if you'd asked me 10 years ago, if I'd have said I was running for Mayor of London 10 years ago, people would have gone, shut up, Ant, carry on with your TV work. But because my identity has been suppressed and because my people have been treated as second-class citizens over predominantly people that don't belong here, that don't deserve to be here, that don't fit in, that don't integrate. What the fuck is going on? Not on my watch. So who is Ant Middleton? I'm a servant of the people, my people.
And before I thank you for your service, have you got a final message to the masses?
Be proud of your roots. Learn about your history. Learn about who fought for you to sleep under your blanket of freedom. Dig deep into our heritage. Dig deep into the foundations of this country. Because guess what? When the shit hits the fan and everything collapses around you, we always revert back to our foundations. And our foundations are Christian principles, values, and morals. Be proud of that. Look for it, identify it. Let's not take our eye off the ball now. Let's not be complacent. I will be your voice, and I will be there to take anything on my fucking shoulders that I can to make you safe and make you feel that sense of pride and make you feel that you belong in your own country.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I didn't pretend to be on the fence. I'm very much in favour and support of Ant. If you are to follow him on all his social media platforms, follow the journey. It's going to be a hell of a journey. Like and subscribe to this channel too. It doesn't take you 2 seconds and it's free of charge. And we can keep having these fearless conversations that the mainstream will want suppressed from you. That's the main thing. And the message of today is we need to get our country back. And starting with the capital city, I believe Ant Middleton is the man for the job. I've never sat here and promoted anybody since I started this podcast journey. I'm thrilled to be able to get behind somebody, and I will do with gusto. And if you feel the same, like the page, follow Ant, stick with us. We're going on a journey. We're taking our country back, starting with the capital. And thank you for coming today, sharing all of the time, the conversations we've had offline, the friendship we've built, and most importantly, your service, sir.
Long will it continue, my man. Cheers, Liam.
Thank you. God bless, brother.
Thank you.